Hey, I'm golf broadcaster Matt Adams. The updated and expanded second edition of my book, The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments, is now available. Readers can expect to march with Arnie's Army at the 1960 U.S. Open, relive Jack Nicklaus's remarkable 1986 Masters win, and be amazed by the Tiger Slam. The Golf Round I'll Never Forget, Golf's Biggest Stars Recall Their Finest Moments. Pick it up where fine books are sold, including BarnesandNoble.com and Amazon.com.
This day in sports history. It's May 1st, and on this day in 1994, tragedy in Formula One racing as Ayrton Senna died during a race in Italy. It was the third weekend on the Formula One schedule. Michael Schumacher had won the first two races of the season with his Benetton team. The series was in Italy for the San Marino Grand Prix. They were racing this week at Imola, a track known for being fast, narrow, and dangerous. And this weekend would soon become known as the Black Weekend. On Friday, another driver and close friend of Senna, Rubens Barrichello, was involved in a horrible crash during practice when his car went airborne and slammed into a tire wall. He was knocked out, but fortunately survived, suffering a broken nose, a broken arm, along with minor cuts and bumps. On Saturday, a rookie driver named Roland Ratzenberger was killed during the second qualifying session. Senna actually hopped in a safety car to check on Ratzenberger and was criticized for doing so. But he wanted information, and Senna felt like information was slow in coming from Formula One, or it was just being withheld. It took several hours for news of Ratzenberger's death to reach the garage. Ratzenberger had actually died in his race car on the racetrack, but he was removed from his car and transported to a local hospital where he was then pronounced dead. The reason that's important is that under Italian law, an on-track death during a race weekend would have halted all events until the accident could be investigated. The race would have been canceled. A lot of money would have been lost. By pronouncing him dead at the hospital, racing activities could continue at the track. Ratzenberger's death was the first F1 racing fatality in 12 years. Also, Senna was with a new team this season, having left McLaren, where he had won 3 Formula One championships, to join the Williams racing team. Williams had the power he felt was lacking at McLaren, but due to an off-season ruling by F1 removing some of the technology from the cars, he felt like the cars lacked control. In the first 2 races, he had yet to claim any points. At his home track in Brazil, he spun out and crashed while leading. He was frustrated. On this day, race day, Senna was on the pole. Schumacher was outside. At the drop of the green flag, there was an immediate problem, though. A car on the grid several rows behind Senna and Schumacher stalled, and another driver plowed into the back of him, bringing out an immediate yellow and the safety car. This first crash was so bad that a security officer and 8 race fans were injured from the flying debris as a result of the impact of the crash. Senna was not happy for a lot of reasons, but he got frustrated at the safety driver for driving too slow. Senna felt the heat leaving his tires. Hotter tires are grippier tires. The safety car pulled off the track on lap 5 for the restart of the race. On lap 7, entering the left-hand Tamburello turn, Senna lost control of his race car, went off the track to the right, and crashed into the outside wall at 131 miles per hour. When paramedics arrived on the scene, Senna was alive, but with a very low pulse. The chief medical officer that day was Dr. Sid Watkins. He said he raised his eyelids, and it was clear from Senna's pupils that he had a massive brain injury. He went on to say, "We lifted him from the cockpit and laid him on the ground. As we did, he sighed, and although I am not religious, I felt his spirit depart at that moment." Senna was flown to a nearby hospital, but was pronounced brain dead at 6:40 p.m. local time. News of Senna's condition was held until after the completion of the race. Schumacher won his third race in 3 starts, but on the podium, there was no celebration, no champagne popping, no music. After being given the news of Senna, the race results were announced, and the drivers walked somberly off the podium. An investigation into the crash later determined that the impact caused his front right tire and suspension to break away from his car. A fragment of the suspension pierced Senna's helmet, causing a skull fracture and severe brain injury, resulting in his death. Several safety measures came about as a result of Senna's death. By 1999, FIA incorporated higher cockpit sides to protect drivers' heads from impact. Tethers were added to the wheels to prevent them from detaching. Additional runoff areas at tracks were put in to help reduce the car's speed once they left the track. And efforts were put in place to slow the cars down while on the track. Ayrton Senna, a 3-time Formula One champion, died at the age of 34. Also on this day, in 1920, it was the longest Major League Baseball game by innings in history, as the Boston Braves and the Brooklyn Robins played a total of 26 innings before darkness fell, and the game had to be halted at 1-1. Amazingly, they played 26 innings in just 3 hours, 50 minutes, and in the May 9th edition, you'll realize why that is so incredible. So, obviously, this was before lights were introduced in ballparks, and apparently the idea of relief pitching was not even a glimmer. Both the Braves starting pitcher Joe Esker and the Dodgers' Leon Cador pitched all 26 innings. Neither pitcher allowed a run over the last 20 innings. Esker actually pitched a 9-inning no-hitter. It just wasn't the first 9. More impressively, though, is that it was his final 9 innings. Esker also set a record that day, pitching 21 consecutive scoreless innings in a game, and said that pitching all those innings was really about job security. He told a reporter from the Sarasota Herald Tribune decades later, if a pitcher couldn't go the distance, well, he soon found himself some other form of occupation. Both Esker and Cador pitched out of jams throughout, and each pitcher got inning-ending double plays with the bases loaded. The game did take a toll on both guys, though. Esker couldn't lift his arm to brush his teeth, so he had to do it with his left. Cador is said to have slept the better part of the next 2 days recuperating from his effort. The game was never restarted, and officially it's a 1-1 tie. Interestingly, these two teams met at the same park 19 seasons later and played to a 2-2 tie in 23 innings. And in 1991, it was another Herculean pitching performance as Nolan Ryan pitched his 7th career no-hitter. At this point in his career, Ryan was a 44-year-old veteran playing for the Texas Rangers. On this night, the Rangers were celebrating Arlington Appreciation Night with the Toronto Blue Jays in town, and the early 90s Blue Jays had a stout lineup. This was Ryan's 25th season in the majors, and he showed he still had zip on his fastball. He was able to mix in a changeup every now and again, along with a hard-breaking curveball. Ryan struck out 16, including Roberto Alomar, to end the game, and he only walked 2 on his way to the 3-0 win. So when Ryan had pitched his 6th no-hitter the season before, he had become the oldest to ever throw a no-hitter, so his 7th simply topped his own record. He managed to strike out at least one batter each inning, and this was his 26th game of striking out 15 or more. So Nolan's 7th career no-hitter stole a lot of the spotlight from a guy who loved the bright glare of notoriety, because also on this day in 1991 on the West Coast, Oakland's Ricky Henderson became the all-time leading base stealer in Major League history. In the 4th inning, and Henderson on second, he took a confident lead and then took off when New York Yankees pitcher Tim Leary delivered to the plate. Henderson slid headfirst into third, and the throw from Matt Noakes was a little late, and it was steal number 939. Henderson jumped up, pulled the base out of the ground, and held it above his head to celebrate passing Lou Brock as the all-time base stealer. There was a brief on-field celebration as Brock himself congratulated Henderson. Brock set his mark in 19 seasons. Henderson was able to break the record in his 13th. Interesting fact, though, Henderson actually was caught stealing twice in this game. Once in the first inning in his first attempt to break the record, and again in the fifth. Time now for today's non-sports Did You Know? On this day in 1953, Sheridan, Wyoming had to cancel its annual snow festival because there was too much snow. That's all for today. Check back in tomorrow for another edition of This Day in Sports History. This has been an original Thrive Suite production.
Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear, starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.